So I've seen this conversation really pick up speed in no, never does. I have not. I don't really watch a lot of Marcellian and them. They do class guides and stuff, and since I don't play WoW anywhere near the level that I would need class guides, I don't generally watch Marcellian and them online. So from my perspective and the way I think about, or what I see on Twitter, let me start there because I keep getting distracted. What I see on Twitter is sort of people becoming disillusioned with the state of the War Within. Now, I've heard from a number of people, there are some people that think the story and the lore is boring. And from that perspective, there's not much we can do. Either a story gels with you and vibes with you, to use the words of the kids, or it doesn't. And if a story doesn't vibe with you, there's literally nothing you can do. Short of basically giving someone a blowjob every single time you let them quest, there's nothing you can do. Either stories work or it doesn't work with an individual. It's very subjective. So there's no, from my perspective, the story has been phenomenal. I've really enjoyed the story, really enjoyed the side quest. You guys have heard me say this to death, right? I love the lore currently in the game. That being said, though, the majority of people I've heard really hate Mythic Plus. And I mean, hate Mythic Plus. Apparently right now, the half of the dungeons really suck with Mythic Plus. The Mythic Plus system feels incredibly uncooperative. It feels like the community itself has become beyond toxic. This is just, I'm literally just relaying to you guys what I'm told, right? Or what I see on Twitter. I don't do Mythic Plus, so I have no horse in this race whatsoever. I'm just relaying to you guys what I hear from people. The other thing that I also hear is delves. Delves apparently, and I will admit, I have felt this myself with delves. They're super fun the first few times you do them, and then the novelty very quickly kind of dies off. It's not like they become shit. It's more just the case of they're very static. You know, it's not procedurally generated, so it's not like you always get something different. The mobs are also not incredibly varied, shall we say. So it doesn't matter what tier of delve you're doing. The mobs are exactly the same. The tactics are exactly the same. So there's really very little in terms of freshness, shall we say, to the current delve system. For the rest of the world, I thought the world quests that I have done have been really fun. I kind of like the idea. I like the mix between weekly stuff that you do and also daily stuff that you do. I feel like there's a healthy balance there between stuff that you can do and stuff that you sort of, don't have to do if you don't want to. I still think the world is amazing. So from my personal perspective, I have not played World of Warcraft seriously, like on a daily basis, for 6 years, right? Ever since Legion, really. I've not played World of Warcraft seriously. But I have played more World of Warcraft in this expansion than I have in the previous previous three. Because I'm having a lot more fun. I feel like when I log on, there's always something for me to engage in. There's always something for me to do. And I look forward to doing those things. So from my perspective, I'm having a lot more fun in the War Within than in any of the previous ones. But the question is, of course, why? Why would you guys say, even if you don't agree with it, imagine I'm asking you to play Devil's Advocate. Why would you guys say, what would be the reasons for why people might be complaining about Mythic Plus, for example? If you were to gander or wager a guess, or maybe just why people are sort of feeling a bit disillusioned with the expansion as a whole. Maybe you don't have opinions on the individual mechanisms, but maybe you can think of a devil's advocate reason for why people are generally a little bit more disenfranchised with the current expansion. I'd love to hear your thoughts before I give you mine. Okay, so the affixes, yeah, okay. been shit, in my opinion, so I can't play devil's advocate. Revy, that's fair. Mythic Keystones might be a little too hard at the moment, but people do also forget the squish they made. The levels 2 to 10 is old 12, 20. So, Nick, the people I've heard complain about this are people who previously have done very high-level push keys. So I'm not talking about your average Joe can barely get a Mythic 0 done. I'm talking about guys that would previously hardcore push. They apparently don't like it as much. Never does. We can talk about it, but yes. I saw it's from Jason Schreier's newest book. So yeah, I know about all of that. Same core in-game since Warlords, or at least Legion. I would imagine they are realizing it's the same in-game, no matter the expansion. I wouldn't say that that's necessarily a bad thing. And the reason I don't necessarily think that that is a bad thing is because for many people in World of Warcraft, the consistency of what the game is actually the draw. And I know that sounds crazy, because someone like myself, for example, that always wants something new, some new challenge, some new adventure, I can find that oftentimes it's why I don't do Mythic Plus, because I would kill myself if I had to do the same things over and over and over again. I don't like the consistent, game loop, shall we say. But there's plenty of people that do, right? There's plenty of people that actually the consistent game loop is what keeps them interested. It's that thing of almost it's cathartic in a way to know exactly what you're getting and to go for that and make that work. I just hate how some of the dungeons are way easier. Skydive Naked, how you doing, by the way? Kind of reminds me of season 1 of Dragonflight, where everybody and their mom would only do Shadow Moon Burial Grounds because it was so much easier than the other dungeons. So I'm going to say, and this really is, in my opinion, all-encompassing on all of the topics that we've discussed thus far. And that is, this expansion, it might not seem like it on the surface. If I were to tell you that this is one of the most innovative expansions Blizzard have ever made, you might go, what are you talking about, bro? We've always had all of these things. There's nothing new. But when you really drill into it, Blizzard have done a phenomenal job with the world, but a lot of the decisions they've made within the world is brand new. Blizzard have done a phenomenal job with dungeon design. And yes, dungeons have always been in the game, but the Mythic Plus system has been completely overhauled. This is no longer the Mythic Plus system of your grandma. This is a new Mythic Plus system. Raids have always been the same thing, and I don't see that ever changing. I'm assuming, I know there's been some changes to PvP, but who cares? No one plays PvP anyways. J Raven, 43 months part of the DJ Nation, appreciate ya. Thank you. You're far too kind. And then Delves, of course. Delves have been the big one, right? Delves have been the big addition to World of Warcraft, and it's also the one thing that I see almost everyone complain about is Delves. And I think a big part of that is people were expecting one thing with Delves, and they were getting something completely different with Delves. But I will explain it to you, and all of it comes in my mind to a couple of things. The first big thing, this is nothing like any previous expansion. In all other expansions, Blizzard would have about a year and a half to fix these issues. So they had to rush. These issues need to be fixed. They need to be fixed now, because the expansion is only this long. This time around, Blizzard has almost 6 years to fix these issues. So Blizzard can take their time, make sure to, walk the path and make the changes that is required in order to get stuff to fun, because they have multiple expansions to get this shit done. The other thing is, it feels like Blizzard almost went with a more foundation approach. So instead of looking at the immediate and saying, well, we have to make it. Let me rephrase and put it this way. As WoW players, we have been conditioned in World of Warcraft to expect big booms right from the get-go. As soon as the expansion comes out, we need instant action, instant sex scenes. Everything needs to be blasting at 100%, or else we leave. We don't want to play anymore. So that's Jagan. How you doing? Thanks for the follow. Really appreciate you. That is not how the War Within works. And remember, I told you guys about a month and a half ago. I told you, I think people are going to get disillusioned because no one is ready for what the War Within is going to bring. I told you that people were not going to be ready for it because players have been trained. Expansions kick off with a bang. And the action needs to move. It needs to constantly move. We have to go places. Now, for the first time ever, the expansion is 5 years long. Because you shouldn't think of the War Within as the War Within Midnight and the Last Titan. You should think of this as the World Soul Saga. The World Soul Saga is the expansion. The War Within, Midnight, and the Last Titan are chapters or patches within the expansion that is the World Soul Saga. So all of these, it's going to be a building process, right? So where in the past you would get giant payoff towards the end of the 2 years that the expansion was going, you're now only going to get that giant payoff after 5 years, right? When the final patch for the final expansion comes out. And it feels like Blizzard very much approached almost everything that they designed with that mindset. The mindset that says, right, let's launch Mythic Plus with this new complete revamp of affixes, but also with a new philosophy. If you go and you look at the philosophy for dungeons now, dungeons are just a lot harder than what they were in the past, right? So, because the dungeon has to be pushable even after the affixes disappear. So they wanted to add more complexity to the dungeons. That's a pretty big change because you introduce affixes on top of that. It can create serious issues, right? But Blizzard said, okay, let's go foundational. We do the basics things first. With Delves, we go basics. Because if you get the foundation right, so if Blizzard spends the next 2 patches making massive changes and fixing the foundation of the system. So Mythic Plus in 2 patches from now is very fun. And Delves in 2 patches from now is very fun. And maybe Raids in 2 patches from now is super fun. And everything we have now is just super fun. Then you can start to build on this foundation. Right? Because you started small, you have room to grow, you have room to build. If you start at 100, so you start at the final version of the thing that you're trying to build, if that version doesn't work, you have to start from scratch. And you're almost never going to be able to start from scratch in the middle of an expansion. So you're basically then just going, well, boys, this did not work out. We don't know what to do now. And that's it, right? That's the end of the conversation. So I think there's a lot more room to grow than there's ever been before. But at the same time, I think World of Warcraft players are not really used to this as a way to build, right? Blizzard players expect more right at the beginning, and they're obviously not getting more right at the beginning. And this is something that Blizzard will have to solve through their own messaging. Blizzard will have to be honest with the player base and tell them what they're planning. Keep talking to the player base. Keep those dialogue lines open so that the player base knows what's coming and can look forward to that. But anyways, let's get to what you guys think of everything I just said. if they're going to do it, the Lost Titan would be the perfect place to do it. As as what gets destroyed, you've got the complete ability to completely restart and rework. I don't expect a rework in World of Warcraft, boys.